Joining us here on the Questions and Alcohol Kentucky, the Q&A, is Lee Northcutt, head brewer at Scout Scholar, and Matthew Cammack, brewer also at Scout Scholar out of Bardstown. Guys, welcome in.
Thanks for having us, man.
And did I say that correct, Matthew?
It's close enough. Close enough. It'll do. He answers to anything but Matt, honestly. Yeah. He doesn't like Matt, so as long as you got the Matthew part correct, so that's
there we go. And I'll just stick with Lee and Matthew moving forward, and hopefully it'll be a little smoother.
Cool with that, man.
Well, I appreciate y'all joining me here on the Q&A, and we talk a lot of things alcohol related in Kentucky, and today, of course, we're sticking with drinks. Although food will be involved too, because you guys also kind of are brew pub there at Scout and Scholar. So before we really dive into too much about Scout and Scholar, tell us a little bit about yourselves.
I've been in the brewing industry for about 9 years. This is my fourth brewery venture. I was raised on the other side of the state in a very small town called Gracie, Kentucky, in between Cadiz and Hawkinsville. Lived in Florida for about 20 years. Decided I wanted to be closer to family, and that's kind of what brought me back to help open up Scout and Scholar. But yeah, that's the Cliff Notes version.
And Matthew?
I'm a Bardstown native, lived here my whole life. I grew up racing motocross. I went to UK, ended up having to give up racing due to some injuries. And beer was, we didn't drink a lot while we were racing full time because we were working out a lot. So once that was over, I told my mom, I was like, I'm going to do some more beer drinking. And it's funny, I just ended up here and I love it. I've always had a passion for cooking and different things like that. So this kind of fits right in.
I was going to say, you're definitely in the kitchen, just a different type of kitchen. And I get to do a whole lot of cool things. Now, Lee, you mentioned family kind of brought you back to Kentucky, but what drew you maybe to say Scout and Scholar and all of that? Because, obviously I feel like there had to be something there to bring you all the way back from Florida as well.
Yeah. So like during my career, like I said, this is my fourth brewery venture. Quite frankly, like I kind of only got like a bump up, if you will, like or a promotion if somebody failed. What really brought me to Scout and Scholar was the fact that like from the get-go, it was just kind of like, my vision as far as the beers and stuff. So a fresh start, if you will. Met with the ownership here and we definitely clicked. They're great people, not just saying that because they write my checks. But yeah, they're great people. I really love their vision as far as what they wanted to bring to Bardstown and the Kentucky craft beer scene as a whole. So I think it's a great partnership.
And then, Matthew, you mentioned getting into beer. I love that you were like, well, I get to drink beer now, so might as well go that route. But I mean, did you have a passion for, kind of what goes into brewing and all that beforehand, or was it more the cooking side? And what pushed you to become a brewer?
Honestly, what I like about this side of what we do, though, is it's a Monday through Friday most of the time. Like if we work weekends, we're going to beer fest. It's not really work. It's play. Honestly, that was the big thing. So I kind of get to explore creatively, like a cooking process, Monday through Friday, banker's hours.
And nothing wrong with that.
You can drink beer, good beer. So
yeah.
And Lee, what does Matthew bring to the team? Because I know you've got a team there behind you. It's not just you doing all the work. What does Matthew and the team bring to the table?
Yeah, it's myself, Matthew, and Jenny. So we're a three team. But it's really cool to bring Matthew into everything. This is like his first brewery venture. From like a teaching standpoint, it's good. Like he didn't have any kind of bad habits, you know what I'm saying, as far as brewing, not cutting corners. It's good to have kind of like that fresh canvas, if you will. But I mean, I'll just be very forthright with you. I couldn't do what I do on the day-to-day without both Matthew and Jenny. I mean, hopefully people, I think it's starting to get out there a little bit more now, but I don't think people really understand what all goes into brewing, what really goes into the product that's in front of you. But from conception to say like brewing it, fermenting it, and then like, conditioning it for the consumer. I mean, it's probably like a month process from like the idea, ordering grain, being able to actually produce it. So like being able to stay ahead of that like thought process and meeting demand and stuff, like I would not be able to do that if I didn't have Matthew and Jenny on staff. So
Matthew, does he normally talk this nice about you?
Most of the time. Yes, he does.
We have our moments, but everybody does. You know what I mean? Everybody does.
Yeah.
I love that. And, obviously you guys work at Scout and Scholar down there in Bardstown. What is that for those that don't know? Explain the name of Scout and Scholar.
Can you handle that?
I guess I'll handle it. So we're named after the two brothers that founded Bardstown, William and David. One was a preacher scholar, one was a frontiersman. That's where the Scout comes from. But it's really just an ode to the history of Bardstown, and that's pretty much where the name came from.
Well, and I also know you guys build off of that as well, because you guys have a Scout series and a Scholar series of beers. So how does that work as far as the beers in the name?
So the Scholar series is just very traditional in nature. Examples just like an American Lager or an Irish Red. We're about to top a double IPA tomorrow. And then the Scout is kind of more adventurous, kind of like the barrel age projects. I would say like any sours we have, just kind of any off the wall idea we have. It's kind of the best of both worlds, where just like the Scout and Scholar is paying homage to the history, like the Scholar series allows us to like keep that tradition as far as beer goes, and that appreciation for traditional styles, while also still having a creative outlet in the Scout series, where it's just literally whatever we can come up with. And as far as the Scout series goes, a lot of times, especially if we're fruiting something, we really lean on our kitchen for a lot of their creative aspects as far as melding flavors. Our executive chef, Clayton, I'll basically go to him and be like, this is one flavor I want to use. What else am I using? And he's fantastic as far as coming up with kind of off the wall stuff. And then we just kind of execute. So it's a really good kind of, blend of creativity and stuff like that.
I was gonna say, how nice is it to have that full kitchen there, and not just kind of like, you, like you mentioned, you have an executive chef. I mean, you guys also, I believe, do pairings at times. How does all that work together and come together?
Yeah, it's I would say having a food aspect is really awesome. He's obviously a very creative individual. I would consider myself and Matthew also creative. More creative people year round. I mean, we're just pushing each other to do better constantly, and having that is awesome. Obviously, too, if you can sit down and Scout and Scholar, have a meal, you're going to drink, at least one more beer, hopefully two. But having that food aspect really helps out for sure.
And when you guys are doing, are you also thinking of pairings when it comes to food and beer? I mean, like what would go well with something that might be on the menu, or at least getting a little creative with that?
For sure. We actually he's working on a new menu entirely. We're going to roll that out soon. But normally we do this thing called a flight infusion. It was all Clayton's idea, the chef, and I dig it. He basically picks a flight, so 4 of my beers, kind of vibes off that, and you get an app, if you will. So it's 4 specific bites paired with that beer. He's taking a little bit of time off that for the next couple of weeks, just because he's planning the new menu and stuff like that. But normally that's an everyday thing here when we are open, is the flight infusion. But yeah.
And Matthew, you come from that creative side. I mean, when people come to Scout and Scholar, what can they expect as far as the beer flavors and even the food?
I mean, we have 24 beers on tap right now.
I hate to correct you, but 25.
25, yeah, and that's not including the 4 nitros that we have. So I mean, as far as the beer goes, we're all over the board. The menu, I know at the beginning we had a little bit where people were nervous from the menu, but I mean, we have a bologna sandwich, we have a chicken sandwich, but I would describe it as elevated, our food. It's simple, but it's great. They really take the time not just to slap together 2 pieces of Wonder Bread and bologna. It's thought out.
And now you all are. I was gonna say, and y'all are down in Bardstown. You're around what many would consider, they wouldn't think of beer per se always when they're down there. I'll put it that way. There's another liquid down there that gets a lot of acclaim. What's it like kind of balancing that side of things with people that maybe come through to visit the Bourbon Trail, or even just working with those breweries to do those barrel age projects?
I mean, the first thing you say when you get off a distillery tour drinking bourbon all day is, I want a beer, and I want a pretzel.
Yeah.
So that's where we're there for that. And I think when people are here, you know, they drink 4 or 5 beers and they're like, man, I'd really like some good bourbon. So they'll go sit down at Willett's or at Heaven Hills Bar and enjoy that.
It's awesome too. Like I would definitely, it's been awesome that the distilleries have embraced us the way they have. We have a really good rapport with all the distilleries around here, and you know they close early, so they close say 5 p.m. and you know we're open late. So they do a fantastic job of any tourists from out of town. They send them our way, and obviously you know we were just at Willett's today for lunch. We love those people, but it's been really awesome creating those connections. Obviously, when it comes to barrels, we're extremely spoiled. I will tell you that, like freshest barrels ever. So we're extremely thankful for that. But it's been really awesome. I mean, I would say Bardstown as a whole, not only the distilleries, but even like our locals has really done a really good job of embracing us. We're the first ones in Nelson County. And yeah, we're just very happy and thankful to be here.
And you know, on those barrel aged beer projects, I mean, what are you guys doing that you know kind of is, you know, you say you like to have a lot of fun down there, so what kind of projects do you guys do with those barrels?
We're all over the board as far as styles. I would say one we just released that I'm really proud of. It's a really cool concept. So we worked with Bardstown Bourbon Company. Steve Nally, their master distiller, he just celebrated 50 years in the industry. We were able to get the barrels that he housed his like 50th anniversary bourbon in. He gave us those barrels. He was like, I would love an imperial wheat in these barrels. So obviously we're going to listen to him because he's a legend. So we threw an imperial wheat in those barrels. It's really good to collab with like master distillers and stuff, just because the process that we both do is so different, you know. So it's really awesome to work with those with people like that and kind of understand both processes. But we called it Wheat King, but you know, not everybody can say that they've done a collab with Bardstown Bourbon and Steve Nally, his pictures on the bottle. So like stuff like that is obviously extremely special, you know.
But I love that, and you know, it's cool to see too that you guys aren't just doing, you know, what I would call the traditional barrel aged beers. You guys that are branching out and having fun. Is that, like I said, that's basically, is that where the fun of the Scout and the Scholar comes in, where you can do a little bit of both?
Yeah, I mean, really, the thought process is just total freedom. It's like we're not afraid to try stuff. Um, we even so we did an imperial sour, a rum runner inspired sour in rum barrels, you know, and that was a collab we did with our friends in Louisville Atrium, another brewery, but we're stoked on that. I mean, the ownership kind of gives the brew house like total freedom to do what we want. So if we're not trying basically anything and everything, I think we're doing that freedom a disservice, if you will, you know. So for us, it's just like, you know, don't be afraid to try new things. Yeah, that's
Well, and you mentioned the partnerships, and for those watching the video, they can see Matthew's rocking the Blue Stallion shirt. You guys do collabs with them. You did collabs with Atriums. You kind of do a lot of collabs around the state, and that's kind of where I really have been fortunate enough to try your beers, is through those partnerships. Why do you guys do so many of those, and what's that process like for y'all?
So collabing for me is really important. Just it gets our name out in Lexington, Louisville, so on and so forth. But I just think the collaborative spirit amongst brewers, like if I need a bag of grain or somebody else needs a bag of grain or they need hops, it's like we reach out to each other and yeah, I got you on this bag of grain, like pay me back in a week, or what, you know, we're really there to rise all ships, if you will. So just being able to brew with other brewers that I respect and going over processes. Every brewer does it different, you know. So it really is awesome. Not only like, you know, just talk processing, learning new things, but just like kind of bringing the community of like the beer community a little closer together. You know, that's really the main focus as far as, because we actually do a lot of collabs for sure. They had me write down all the collabs we've done, and I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like I'm dumb. But just bringing everybody together, you know, and like I said, it gets us, we're kind of, I hate to say it, but we're kind of in a bubble here in Bardstown, you know what I mean? Like, so just being able to be on tap at another brewery that I really respect, and then having them here, since the tourism aspect in Bardstown, because of the Bourbon Trail, is so crazy. I think it does a great job for not only our brands, but for whatever brand we work with as well. So.
Well, no, I was gonna say, you mentioned it. That's how I learned about you you all the most was, being in Lexington, seeing your name. And when I see your name now on a beer, I'm a lot more apt to go for it. And how do those partnerships work? Like, I mean, do you go up to their places, they come down there, or do you guys kind of work on recipes together, do them separately? How do those work? Because I've always been curious, and you guys
Let's
seem
say
to be like doing this a good bit, so I figure you got it
each
down.
collab's kind of different, man, but I call it a 1-in-1. So basically they'll come up here, brew a batch, and then we'll go there and brew a batch. A lot of times it's different styles. Obviously I try to, anything we do here with other brewers, I try to bring in the barrel aspect, barrel aging portion of it, just because of where we are. But normally I would say like 9 times out of 10, it's a very collaborative effort, from what the style, the recipe, how we're going to treat it during fermentation. And then we basically just split that down the middle and pour it in both of our tap rooms. So,
well, and you mentioned too the traditional styles and things like that. I think that's one of my favorite things that I think you all did. I think it was with Blue Stallion, was the Dortmunder. I don't see that very much. It's one of my favorite beers.
yeah.
Do you guys just love those styles and love kind of getting to play with those, maybe what some might consider traditional?
I would definitely say, I can't speak for Matthew on this, but I literally, I drink low ABV beers all the time. Like, and it's normally like, our American lager. I drink a lot of Coors Banquet, quite frankly. After the sours and stuff, obviously I do them, but that's not really my wheelhouse as far as what I enjoy on a personal level. The Dortmunder, well, I actually enjoyed that beer a tremendous amount too. That's all JR over at Blue Stallion. He's killing it. Yeah, that was an awesome beer to do. It was a really fun time. I love Blue Stallion in general. I think they do a fantastic job.
And Matthew, I mean, are you a fan of those traditional styles, or?
Yes, for sure. A good Hellas, a Kolsch. I've been begging him for a Kolsch for a long time. We've got this dry hop Kolsch on now, it's fantastic. I like my low yellow fizzies that I can drink 30 of. That's me. I'm a high life guy.
I love bringing in those traditional beers that everyone knows. But like you said, there's a lot of good beer styles out there. I mean, when you all are coming up with ideas and looking at stuff down the road, I mean, are you trying to balance stuff that you love with what people will love? I mean, how does that balance work out as you try to come up with new recipes?
In the beginning, it was really just like whatever we wanted to do. I would say we've calmed down a little bit from that. Like, we do have kind of staples, if you will, like our American lager, Old Buddy. We have a cream ale called Cold Beer. We got a Belgian blonde called Give Me 3 Steps. So there's like, there's certain things we have to do, but I mean, like coming up in 2 weeks, like Matthew is going to do his second like big batch beer, and it's basically whatever he wants. You know what I mean? I'm like, we got an open tank. You just tell me what you want to do. So having not only the Scholar, but also the Scout really does allow us to, as long as we stick with those core brands and we have those on tap, we can kind of do whatever we want. And we definitely take advantage of that. So.
And Matthew, do you have some ideas percolating there that you're wanting to do yet?
I do. It has the nail. I haven't pinned it down just yet. It'll be there.
I mean, when you guys do go through recipes and so forth, I mean, how much fun is it to do that? Because I don't think people realize there's a lot of work with that, because especially if you want to scale them up, it doesn't always go as you would think. So, I mean, how much fun is that, and also how much work is that? Because like you talked about earlier, maybe not everyone understands the entire process that goes into these.
Yeah, I mean, as far as writing a recipe, I was very fortunate enough. I had a really good teacher when I was in Florida coming up in the brew game. So, but there are certain specs, like just like bourbon is like kind of traditional as far as recipes. Like if we are doing a traditional style, I mean, that recipe, you kind of, there is a box for that, if you will. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have a certain percentage of this grain and that grain. Obviously, just like coffee is roasted to a certain level, grains, it's called kilned or roasted. But obviously, the longer the kiln, the darker the grain. So if it's a dark beer, obviously I'm going to use more of that kiln grain. You know what I mean? If it's a light beer, I'm obviously going to stay away from that. But normally when writing a recipe, man, it's you kind of have like, you use the color of the actual grain to actually create. And I use a computer program too, honestly, that gives me all those colors and stuff. So I kind of cheat a little bit if we're really talking. But yeah, writing a recipe, man, it's definitely fun. But like I said, just like those roasted grains and malts, and getting each one, if you taste it too, is different, like from the flavor perspective. So just coming up with that kind of blend that you want to get what you want, it's challenging, but also definitely fun.
And Matthew, Lee mentioned you're going to be, doing your next large batch. I mean, when you're working on scaling things up, how's that been like for you as you've learned and gained knowledge?
For one thing that I know I've learned from Lee is, you look at some recipes online or just searching around. A lot of them, like, man, they've got like 4 pounds of this, 8 pounds of this, 10 pounds of that. And something that I've kind of learned is just keep it simple. Like, really, 4 or 5 ingredients in most beers, like 4 or 5 different types of malt is fine. I mean, what are you really going to get out of 5 pounds of, whatever grain? Not a whole lot. So keep it simple. That's kind of what I've learned.
I like that. The KISS theory is a very wise one. And as we kind of wrap this up, what are some things that you guys can talk about that you've got coming up this year, or that you can tease that you got coming up this year, as folks can be on the lookout for, whether they're around the state or visiting Scout and Scholar down in Bardstown?
Yeah, I mean, short term, I mean, this weekend is the Craft Bash at the Waterfront in Louisville. It's one of like the biggest craft beer festivals in the state, so we're really looking forward to that. We're actually distributed in Lexington and Louisville now. We signed with Nolan Distribution. Michael Nolan, he's doing a great job for us, kind of getting us into kind of like key accounts, if you will. So we're, as far as from a growth standpoint, I mean, I would say we're looking to push more out into distribution, just so our name is out there a little bit more. We are looking for expansion, but honestly, like we have like 3 options right now, and I have no idea which way we're going to go. But I would definitely say in the coming months, we hope to announce some sort of expansion plan, because there is a demand for our product, which we're really thankful for. But
Infinity Series.
Yeah, with Bardstown Bourbon, back to the Wheat King, it was really cool when I pulled out of those barrels the Imperial Wheat. Bardstown Bourbon actually came and picked up those barrels, and then they put bourbon back into it. It's a start of a series. It's called the Infinity Series. So basically, that spirit is obviously going to age in that beer barrel for a specific amount of time. We're going to try it. When we decide it's good, I'm going to take those barrels back, put another style in, and it's just going to be a constant rotation of not only beer but also bourbon. So having a project like that is really fun for us too. I think obviously we're the new kids on the block trying to bring beer into Bardstown, but having that connection with what makes Bardstown, the bourbon industry, is really awesome. But yeah, expansion for sure. At some point we'll announce that, and we're just really excited, man. We're busy, which is good.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being busy. And I know you touched on this earlier, but I mean, again, just how awesome is it to be able to, because you all have some amazing distilleries down there to work with, and being the new guys on the block, because y'all have only been around for a few years, how awesome is it that they are so open to working with y'all, and not just working, saying giving a barrel and doing things, but going as far as the Infinity Series? Like, I mean, those are really awesome projects, and are really collaborative, and I love seeing those.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great experience, and like I said, they embrace us tremendously. Like, Maker's Mark is going to be here at 6:00. I guess they're bringing all their hospitality people, but it's just really awesome. At the end of their work day too, they're tired of bourbon, so they want a beer. So it's when you said
we're the opposite.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we end on the bourbon, and we feel like we do today.
But when you're able to sit down with those distillers and just those industry folks, it's the same, like, kind of, I would say, brewery vibe too. Like, what we just we obviously like good company. We like to have a good drink and good food. So like being able to just share that with those people too is awesome. And like I said, they do such a good job of embracing us and sending customers our way, or barrels. Just really, we're going to Bardstown Bourbon Company tomorrow to test the ABV of one of our beers, just because we're curious, and we don't have that outlet to do that in house, but they do. So they've been so kind as to test one of our beers, because internally it's a debate as far as what the ABV is. But yeah, having that, man, is it's really awesome. And I think it kind of I'm not saying this egotistically or braggadocious, but it kind of sets us apart from other breweries, which obviously I'm extremely thankful for. And it's really cool.
Well, Lee, Matthew, I appreciate the time. I love what y'all are doing. Like I said, I haven't been able to get down there yet, but when I see Scout and Scholar on a board somewhere around Lexington or wherever I'm at, I'm always very apt to want to try that because y'all are doing some great things. And thanks
Thank
again
you.
for hopping on here.
Of course, sorry we were late. I'll say it publicly. I'm so sorry we were late. But thank you so much for having us, man. We appreciate it. And obviously let us know if you ever come by the restaurant and stuff. We'll treat you to a meal, a couple beers. So
Absolutely. I appreciate it.